Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. I have a two-part story for us today. We're going to do the first part today and I'll do the second part sometime next week. But this trial is so large. There's actually 3 trials in one specific place. And today we're talking about VARDO, which is in northern Norway. Okay, there's 3 witch trials that happen, but we're going to go over the first one today. As I tell these stories, I do my makeup, and at the same time, just kind of tell you the story and what's happening, and just try to bring it back to life. So if that sounds awesome to you, please stick around because I love doing these stories. They're so much fun, and I really hope that you guys are enjoying them. So, as always, this starts out with something major happening, and this huge major storm happens, and it utterly destroys a fleet and kills so many men. And naturally, somebody they got to figure out, how did this happen? How did this happen? It had to be what? Witches, of course. And so this is what starts this trial, is a storm that basically came up from nowhere and destroyed and killed so many people. And so let's go ahead and just get this party started. So the very first VARDO witch trial happened in 1621, okay? And it was because, like I told you guys, of a storm, basically. It's one of the largest witch trials that they had. Obviously, later on, it gets a little bit more crazy. But it's definitely the largest one they had in Norway during 1621, okay? And what happened is there was a whole fleet of ships out to sea, and all of the women that were on shore were waiting for their husbands to come back, and that's what they would do. They would get on a ship and they'd go out and they would fish, for months at a time. And it's kind of like the same thing with that crab fish and stuff, and they go out for months at a time, and then they would come back and things like that. And that's the way those people have been doing this forever, okay? Because there was an indigenous tribe in this. There is, and they do get pinpointed as some of the witches in this trial, unfortunately. But we're going to get to it, so yeah. So anyway, this huge storm pops up, right? And they said the sea and the sky became one, okay? Like basically, it was as if it was loosened from a bag. It just came up so suddenly, and it sank 10 boats and killed 40 men. And so, of course, there's always a major thing that's happened during, to spark a witch trial. There's always some kind of major deal that happened, you know what I mean? And so, this is that major deal, is this huge storm that happened. Storms are not in our control. I'm just saying, but it is what it is. So that same year, they created a new law for witchcraft and sorcery, okay, for the Union of Denmark/Norway, and it was issued and announced in Denmark in 1620, okay. And so they had a law. They had a law now, all right. So because of this storm, a trial takes place. And I know you're like, wow, you're jumping really far ahead. No, they go ahead and jump into a trial because let me tell you, we have women pointing the finger at women and everybody. I mean, nobody's excluded from this at all. Not even a little bit, no, they're not. Everybody that has had something happen to their men, they are upset, okay? But yet these are the same indigenous people that are going to be the ones that are pinpointed, yeah, because in their way they were not Christian, okay? This indigenous people of northern Norway, they were not Christian. They were like shamans, herbalists, things of that nature. And so they go on ahead and they start this trial, and they start with a woman named Mary, and her last name is, I'm gonna try to say it, Jordan's daughter, was interrogated under torture, of course, in January 21st, and her confession is a little bit, it's buck wild. Yeah, it's a little bit crazy, But you know, when you're under torture, like I keep saying in these videos, I'm sure y'all are tired of hearing me say it, but when you're under torture, you'll say anything to make it stop, even if it's a lie. And they'll never consider it being a lie, you know? And that's the weird thing. She said, okay, now a lot of this happened around Christmas time, okay? And so Christmas, she said, Satan came to her at night in 1620 and asked her to follow him to the house of her neighbor. There she goes, pointing the finger at somebody. Christy Soren's daughter, okay? Supposedly Satan asked her to serve him, and she said yes. She's like, yeah, no problem, buddy. I got you, you know. They gave her a witch's brand, which this is something new. Evidently, it's where the devil bites you between your fingers, and that is a brand, I guess, that you have on you. I'm not really sure. I doubt they ever looked for this brand, like looking for bite marks between fingers, but you know, they just went with the flow of what she was saying. So then they questioned Mary. They questioned Kirsty. They questioned her, as so many people. She said that Mary, she pointed the finger, said, had come with her to a Christmas party, and that she had thrown a fox skin over Mary, and it transformed her into a fox. Okay, that's what, because of course she's being tortured too as she's being questioned, this Kirsty chick, right? And supposedly, Marie flew with Christy towards the Sabbaths that they would have with Satan, and said they saw others doing the same exact thing, okay? And some of them were changing into like their familiars and things like that, and like that way they were more like inconspicuous. People wouldn't see them, you know? So they would turn into their familiars, and they would go and converse with the devil and all this other kind of things. And it wasn't just women. There was also 2 men involved in this too, okay? 2 men. And on top of this mountain called Lighthorn, okay, is where they would meet with Satan. And they evidently had a Christmas party with him. They did. Merry Christmas, Satan. It begins. Their Christmas party, Satan's Christmas party, of course, you got to think, this is probably going to be a little bonkers. Oh, there it is. So during this party, what they would do is they would dance and they would drink and they would, you know, just get into all kinds of debauchery and things like that, you know, that most people, you know, that they weren't really, it wasn't really a Christian thing to do, was like to dance and to do all these kind of things back then. But, you know, that's what they did at this Christmas party with Satan, okay? And then they all flew back the next morning just in time for church for Christmas, okay? Except for one. One did not come back. And don't worry, we're going to talk about her in just a little bit and why she didn't come back. So, of course, they end up going back to Mary and asking her questions. And she ends up confessing, saying, yeah, we're the ones that did the storm. Straight up, we did that, yeah. Like, no regrets. I mean, she admits to it. But you have to think, though, she is under duress. She's under torture giving this confession, okay? And so she says what she says. She says it was their fault. They did it. They created this storm that killed all of these people, and, you know, of course, left their families without any kind of, you know, husband, father, anything like that. You know what I mean? And so she says she did it because of an argument she had with a neighbor. Yes, I think that makes sense. That's her reasoning behind supposedly doing that. We know that she didn't do the storm. Okay, they're just saying this because she's trying not to be tortured. Okay, and so she's like, she knows what they want her to say, and so she just says it. She's like, yeah, you know what? We did that storm. And, you know, it is what it is. And so she just kind of leaves it at that. But then she says, when they went, she said that they also had relations with the devil and demons while the men were at sea. And so now some of the wives are being questioned. Are like, okay, are y'all going and having relations with demons and the devil while your husbands are at sea trying to fish and make a living for you? Like, what are you doing? Then they start finding more and more women that start confessing and pointing the finger at different people, okay? And so they find this girl named Elise, okay? Elise Nutstatter was interrogated and confirmed at Christmas 1617. Witches had tied up a rope 3 times, so they did some cord magic, basically, if they really did this or not. But where they got this thinking from, the cord magic, that's actual magic, you know. But yeah, anyway, so they tied a rope 3 times, spat at it, untied it, and then they said the sea rose like ashes and people were killed. They said that's how they did it, and it was all because of some kind of dispute with their neighbor. Okay, yeah. This Elise chick was actually arrested after she was seen in the company of demons and animals. They say animals, but I'm going to say they're probably familiars. That's what they considered it, her familiars. And then she was tortured with water. I imagine, I don't know if they poured buckets of water over her head or if they dumped her into a river or what they did, but they did torture Elise with water. Just like I say, they tortured all of them. So here comes another chick. Her name is Anne Lardstatter, okay? And she was tortured with water as well. And her confession is pretty buck wild, yeah. She says that the devil tied the tongues of witches so they could not confess until they were exposed to water. Yeah, that's what she said. She said that they were not exposed, that you could only break the curse of, you know, supposedly the devil putting, you know, tying your tongue. It could only be done with water. And of course, to them, that means probably holy water, obviously. And so maybe they're waterboarding them, I don't know, or baptizing them to release the devil or whatnot. But that's what they said. She said that she had also flown to a Sabbath where she saw 40 other people. Okay, 40. She says she saw 40 people. How you gonna point the finger at 40 people? That's insane. But she did that. I mean, but you never know what you'll do under torture. It's duress. It's stress. It's scary. It's painful. And it's, you know, it'll make you say anything, basically. She said they partied so hard that she was in bed right before they had to go to church. So she kind of confirmed the other girl's story about how they went to this Christmas party and they partied with the devil all night long and everybody left except for this one person or whatnot. And so many women have been interrogated by this point because there's so many finger pointings everywhere. Like, she's a witch, she did this, I went to her house and we went to this party, and you know, there's so many of these things. And so after all these confessions, Kirsty was brought back in to be questioned because these ladies said that she was their admiral, she was their leader, basically. She was the top dog of all, I guess, of this coven that they have, and she's the reason why that the storm happened. And she's the reason for everything, basically, is what they say. And so she was arrested. They arrested her right after she got off of a boat. And I'll tell you why. Now, Kirsty was the one that did not come back with the rest of them, supposedly. And so them catching her on a boat was almost like them saying, okay, we caught her coming back from this party or whatnot with the devil, basically. Yeah, they're saying that that's what happened. So they arrest her like as soon as she gets off the boat, because it coincided with the fact that the girl said that she wasn't going to be flying home, that she was going to take a boat. Yeah, so she got ratted on by a bunch of females and all this fun stuff. So she gets arrested, And because they said that, so many these women have said that this is their leader person. This is the one that has said, that she's the one that wanted the storm to happen and all this other kind of stuff. So it kind of, like I say, her getting off the boat coincided with her not flying home with the rest of them. And so they took this as a sign, obviously. This is a sign that she's a witch, she's just now coming back from the devil's little party or whatnot, and she evidently stuck around and had some more relations. And it's just, it could be, honestly, she probably just came back from somewhere. She probably came back from visiting family or something like that. But no, they were not taking this. Okay, now Kirsty was married to a really rich guy. He's a rich merchant, okay, named Anders Johansson. And she learned the craft, actually, from an old woman. Because, like I say, the indigenous peoples of the area were still in the area. And they were the ones that were kind of most prosecuted in this. Because, of course, they would say that, they would name who taught them these herbal remedies or these magic spells and things like that. They would say that. And so, anyway, she said she learned the craft from an old woman. Of course, she was tortured as well. Not the old woman, but our girl here. She was tortured, and she said that under torture, she confirmed what the other woman had said, but then pointed out more women and then 2 more men. Yeah. So these indigenous people, they were named the Sami people, okay? And like I say, they were the number ones that were kind of targeted throughout this trial, the second trial, and the third trial. And we'll definitely get to those 2 in the next series, okay? Because the second one's not too long, but the last one's pretty long. But, so we have these Sami people, right? Or Sami people. And they are healers. They're shamans. It's what they do. And they decided that they have started teaching the community some of their ways of, healing. So up to the point where Kirsty is blamed for the whole entire deal, okay, saying that she's the leader. It doesn't matter because these other women are also executed. It's not just the one, all right? That's the sad thing about this. It's not just the one girl. It's actually 10 in this one. Yeah, we lose 10 people. And she is burned alive at the stake on April 28th, 1621. And Kirsty was the last one to be in any kind of... She was the last one to be burned for that trial. Okay? But, as I've told you guys, there's 2 more trials in VARDO that happen. Okay? And the next one is going to be in, I think it's 1661. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember. But we're going to be going over that one next week. We're going to be going over the last 2 next week. But this one it's insane because of the way they... Not only did they use a storm as a reason to start hurting people and to start torturing them to try to get some kind of confession out of it that would make them feel better about a storm brewing. It's the only thing that I can think of is they're trying to find a reason for something. And sometimes there's just no reason for a storm. Things just happen. And that's what people don't seem to understand back then. They had to blame it on somebody. And these Sami people who were teaching the locals, evidently because they were magicians. They were. And they were teaching them some of their tricks, And so even if these women did tie 3 knots and spat on it and undid the knots, and then all of a sudden this huge storm happened, I seriously doubt it's because of the knots they put into a rope. The Sami people, they lived on the edge of the sea because, like I say, a lot of them were fishermen, okay? They were not the only ones. They were actually, some of their husbands were actually out there on those boats as well, okay? So it wasn't just like a fleet of like military. It was like workers and things like that. And so they pinpointed the Sami people for this because they were magicians, and thought that the wives should not live apart from their husbands. They thought that that was a bad thing. These Christians did. And like I told you guys earlier, the Sami people were not Christians. No, they had their own spirituality, which is totally fine, right? But I guess because they were teaching it to Christian people, and that kind of upset the church. And the Sami people are the ones, the indigenous of the northern Norway area. They are the ones that get blamed for a lot of this. Okay, unfortunately, the Sami were not Christian, and they had that reputation for sorcery, and witchcraft. So, like I say, in this trial, 10 women were executed, unfortunately, and almost 150 more people will be executed for sorcery in the same place between 1621 and 1663. And we're going to go over all those. These 10 today is just the start of the VARDO witch trials, okay? The sad part about all these witch trials is the fact that so many women are being tortured to get a certain confession that these men want out of them, okay? It's like they're almost torturing them until they get the exact story that they want to hear. And that's exactly what they did in this trial. They tortured these women until they said, yes, we did the storm, even though we know they didn't make that storm. It's a storm. It was a huge, terrible thing that happened. 40 men died. 10 boats went down. You know, back then it took a long time to build a boat. So I know it's a huge loss. When something big happens, you can't start blaming or trying to find a reason in it. Sometimes bad things just happen. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. You know, back then they want to nail somebody for it. You know what I mean? This is going to be so cute if I can do this right. Ha! So anyways, that is our story for today. And we're going to do more. Obviously, the next one's going to be the second part of the VARDO series, where a lot more women go down, as well as men, unfortunately. And basically the 3 largest witch trials that they had in northern Norway during this time. And so this is the first one of today, and next week we're going to cover the other 2. So I hope you guys stick around. I hope you like this episode. The VARDO witches it's like the same old story. You know, there's something terrible happens and they feel like they have to find a reason for every little bad thing that happens. And unfortunately, that's just not life. You're not going to find out the reason why some things happen. They just do, you know. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this today, and I will see you guys in a few days with part 2. All right? And if nobody's told you today, I love you. So love yourself too.